In the morning of February 3, 1945, American soldiers and several tanks roll into the outskirts of Manila and capture a vital bridge across a river that divides the city. As the Americans press on, they are weighted by over 16,000 Japanese soldiers and Marines eager to fight and annihilate the intruders and bring destruction to Manila's 1 million residents. The fight to liberate Manila, the world's second destroyed city during the Second World War, is about to begin. The fight to free Manila and the rest of the Philippines begins on January 9th as the 6th U.S. Army, under Lieutenant General Walter Kruger, wade ashore at Lingayen Gulf and start a rapid drive south in the Battle of Luzon. As General Douglas MacArthur orders Kruger to advance rapidly, the 37th Infantry Division, under the command of Major General Robert S. Beitler, headed south. After landing at San Fabian on 27th January, the 1st Cavalry Division, under the command of Major General Vernon D. Mudge, is ordered by MacArthur on 31st January to get to Manila and free the internees at Santa Tomas, a Jesuit university captured by the Japanese 2 years prior. He also instructs the capture of Malacañang Palace and the Legislative Building. On 31st January, the 8th United States Army of Lieutenant General Robert L. Eichelberger, including the 187th and 188th Glider Infantry Regiments of Colonel Robert H. Soule, and components of the U.S. 11th Airborne Division under Major General Joseph Swing, land unopposed at Nasugbu in southern Luzon and begin moving north toward Manila. At the same time, the 11th AB Division's 511th Regimental Combat Team, commanded by Colonel Orrin D. Hard Rock Haugen, parachutes onto Tagaytay Ridge on 4 February. On 10th February, the 11th Airborne Division comes under the command of the 6th Army and seized Fort William McKinley on 17th February. Swing is joined by the Hunters ROTC Filipino guerrillas, under the command of Lieutenant Column Emmanuel Fier de Ocampo, and by 5th February, they were on the outskirts of Manila. As the Americans converge on Manila from different directions, they find that most of the Imperial Japanese Army troops defending the city had been withdrawn to Baguio on the orders of General Tomoyuki Yamashita, Commander-in-Chief of Japanese Army Forces in the Philippines. Yamashita planned to engage Filipino and U.S. forces in northern Luzon in a coordinated campaign, with the aim of buying time for the buildup of defenses against the pending Allied invasion of the Japanese home islands. He had 3 main groups under his command: 80,000 men of the Shimbu Group in the mountains east of Manila, 30,000 of the Kembu Group in the hills north of Manila, and 152,000 in the Shobu Group in northeastern Luzon. General Yamashita did not declare Manila an open city, although General Douglas MacArthur had done so before its capture in 1941. Yamashita had not intended to defend Manila. He did not think that he could feed the city's 1 million residents and defend a large area with vast tracts of flammable wooden buildings. Yamashita did order the commander of Shimbu Group, General Shizuo Yokoyama, to destroy all bridges and other vital installations, and then evacuate the city as soon as any large American forces made their appearance. However, Rear Admiral Sanji Iwabuchi, commander of the Imperial Japanese Navy's 31st Naval Special Base Force, was determined to fight a last-ditch battle in Manila, and, though nominally part of the Shimbu Army Group, repeatedly ignored Army orders to withdraw from the city. The naval staff in Japan agreed to Iwabuchi's scheme, eroding a frustrated Yamashita's attempts at confronting the Americans with a concerted, unified defense. Iwabuchi had 12,500 men under his command, designated the Manila Naval Defense Force, augmented by 4,500 Army personnel under Colonel Katsuzo Noguchi and Captain Saburo Abe. They built defensive positions in the city, including Intramuros, cut down the palm trees on Dewey Boulevard to form a runway, and set up barricades across major streets. Iwabuchi formed the northern force under Noguchi, and the southern force under Captain Takusue Furuse. Iwabuchi had been in command of the battleship Kirishima when she was sunk by a U.S. Navy task force off Guadalcanal in 1942, a blot on his honor which may have inspired his determination to fight to the death. On 3 February, elements of the 1st Cavalry Division under General Mudge pushed into the northern outskirts of Manila and seized a vital bridge across the Tullahan River, which separated them from the city proper, and quickly captured Malacanang Palace. A squadron of Brigadier General William C. Chase's 8th Cavalry, the first unit to arrive in the city, began a drive toward the sprawling campus of the University of Santo Tomas, which had been turned into the Santo Tomas internment camp for civilians and the U.S. Army and Navy nurses, sometimes known as the Angels of Bataan. Of the 4,255 prisoners, 466 died in captivity. 3 are killed while attempting to escape on 15 February 1942, and 1 made a successful breakout in early January 1945. At 9 p.m., 5 tanks of the 44th Tank Battalion headed by Battalion Basic headed into the compound. The Japanese, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Toshio Hayashi, gather the remaining internees together in the education building as hostages and exchange potshots with the Americans and Filipinos. The next day, 5th February, they negotiated with the Americans to allow them to rejoin Japanese troops to the south of the city, carrying only individual small arms. The Japanese are unaware the area they requested was the now American-occupied Malacanang Palace, and soon afterwards are fired upon, and several were killed, including Hayashi. On the 4th of February, the 37th Infantry Division freed more than 1,000 prisoners of war, mostly former defenders of Bataan and Corregidor, held at Bilibid Prison, which had been abandoned by the Japanese. General Oscar Griswold continued to push elements of the 14th Corps south from Santo Tomas University toward the Pasig River. Late on the afternoon on 4th February, he ordered the 2nd Squadron, 5th Cavalry Regiment, to seize Quezon Bridge, the only crossing over the Pasig that the Japanese had not destroyed. As the squadron approached the bridge, Japanese heavy machine guns opened fire from a formidable roadblock thrown up across Quezon Boulevard, forcing the cavalry to stop its advance and withdraw until nightfall. As the Americans and Filipinos pulled back, the Japanese blew up the bridge. On 5th February, the 37th Infantry Division began to move into Manila, and Griswold divided the northern section of the city into 2 sectors, with the 37th responsible for advancing to the south and the 1st Cavalry Division responsible for an envelopment to the east. The Americans secured the northern bank of the Pasig River by 6th February and had captured the city's water supply at the Novaliches Dam, Balara water filters, and the San Juan Reservoir. On 7th February, General Beitler ordered the 148th Regiment to cross the Pasig River and clear Paco and Pandacan. The bitterest fighting for Manila, which proved costliest to the 129th Regiment, was in capturing the steam-driven power plant on Provisor Island, where the Japanese held out until 11 February. By the afternoon of 8th February, 37th Division units had cleared most of the Japanese from their sector, but the residential districts were damaged extensively. The Japanese added to the destruction by demolishing buildings and military installations as they withdrew. Japanese resistance in Tondo and Malabon continued until 9th February. Trying to protect the city and its civilians, MacArthur had stringently restricted U.S. artillery and air support. But by 9th February, American shelling had set fire to a number of districts. Iwabuchi's sailors, Marines, and Army reinforcements, having initially had some success resisting American infantrymen armed with flamethrowers, grenades, and bazookas, soon faced direct fire from tanks, tank destroyers, and howitzers, which blasted holes in one building after another, often killing both Japanese and civilians trapped inside, without differentiation. Subjected to incessant pounding and facing certain death or capture, the beleaguered Japanese troops took out their anger and frustration on the civilians caught in the crossfire, committing multiple acts of severe brutality, which later would be known as the Manila Massacre. The Japanese forced Filipino women and children to be used as human shields into the front lines to protect Japanese positions. Those who survived were then murdered by the Japanese, including 3,000 people herded into Fort Santiago. Iwabuchi was ordered by General Shizuo Yokoyama, commander of the Shimbu Group, to break out of Manila on the night of 17th to 18th February in coordination with counterattacks on Novaliches Dam and Grace Park. The breakout failed and Iwabuchi's remaining 6,000 men were trapped in Manila. The Japanese retreated into Intramuros on the night of 19 February, and the Manila hotel was liberated on 22 February, where MacArthur found his penthouse in ashes. Only Intramuros, plus the legislative, finance, and agricultural buildings remained in Japanese hands. The assault on Intramuros started at 7:30 on 23 February with a 140-gun artillery barrage, followed by the 148th attacking through breaches made in the walls between the Quezon and Parian gates, and the 129th crossing the Pasig River, then attacking near the location of the government mint. The fighting for Intramuros continued until 26 February when Iwabuchi and most of his group took their own lives. By March 3rd, fighting is generally over save for some pockets of resistance from holdouts.